Hello everyone, welcome back and thank you for joining us on the fourth day of YOSA's Standing Ovation Week. My name is Rick Cavender, I'm your host. We have another inspiring day in store. Today we'll look at equity in music and how classical music can become more equitable and representative. In a few minutes, we'll hear from Afa Dworkin, the president and artistic director of the Sphinx organization. Sphinx is the nation's leading organization transforming lives through the power of diversity in the arts. In her role at Sphinx, Afa has helped to shape the national classical music landscape, a recipient of Kennedy Center's Human Spirit Award, as well as Musical America's Top 30 Influencers recognition. Afa is a thought leader and a strategist driving national programming that promotes diversity in classical music. Later today at 6 p.m., we have an enchanting performance from violinist Elena Uriosti and her husband pianist Tom Poster. Elena and Tom are a musical duo that has entertained the world with their clever and lively Europosti jukebox during the height of the pandemic. Before we get to Afa Dworkin, let's first hear from Alicia Grant and Natalie Karge, attorneys and YOSA board members, about their thoughts on YOSA's impact on the community.
Hi everyone, we just want to welcome you to YOSA's Standing Ovation Week. We are so excited that you guys are here for this event. I am Alicia Grant and I'm one of the board members of YOSA.
And I'm Natalie Karge and I'm another board member of YOSA.
And so Natalie and I both were introduced through YOSA by attending one of the YOSA's concerts, and we're completely blown away by just how impressed and totally impressed with how talented the youth were, and I think there was just kind of love at first sight.
Yes, I mean, I think we were kind of impressed not only with the talent of the youth, but of the YOSA program in general, and just how important YOSA is to our community. And I guess I want to talk a little bit more about that. YOSA is a premier orchestra experience for our youth in San Antonio. And not only do they learn more about music and the arts and have the ability to play on an orchestra here in San Antonio, but it also enhances their education, enriches our community, and gives them the ability to be a part of something, be a part of a team. And that's where they learn self-discipline, confidence, and these are experiences that, can take them through their entire lives.
Yeah, I've been so impressed by when I tell people YOSA and I start to explain it. They're like, no, we know all about it. We've seen you guys everywhere. We've heard the youth, and they are talented, gifted, and we're very impressed with what you're doing for the community. And so one of the things that also impressed me about YOSA was the efforts that it's made to provide access to music for all youth, to completely eliminate the financial barriers so that regardless of where you come in life, that you have access to training, mentoring, scholarship opportunities, where you can take music and develop that into a career. It's just been very impressive to me.
Yeah, and specifically what Alicia is talking about is our Rising Star Fellows program. And so what that does is it provides support and resources for the individuals in our community that come from highly or predominantly Black, Hispanic, and Native American communities, and those that probably suffer more in the socioeconomic regard. And this Rising Star Fellow, we try to support, I think, about 16 fellows each year, and we provide them with tuition, clothes for concerts. They also give them gas and grocery cards because they know that in order to be a part of YOSA, it's going to take something else out of their personal lives, which may mean like being able to work and provide for the family. And so we like to help them have those resources so that their families aren't hurting as well in order for them to have this opportunity, which could lead to so many more opportunities in their life later down the road.
Right, because for example, there'll be an extremely talented youth, but they're like, I would like to do this, but I have to work part-time, or it's hard for me to pay for the bus pass to get there. And so YOSA just provides an avenue to that. So it's been really rewarding to see the youth that are in that program right now and what they're going to do for our community. I'm sure it's going to be great things are going to come from these individuals. The other thing that I've been impressed with YOSA is that YOSA has focused on classical concerts, composers, but has also broadened that to include composers that come from different diverse backgrounds and different types of music. For example, just this year, before COVID hit and everything went crazy,
You're right.
we got to go to the Selena concert,
Yes.
and it was fantastic, and it was really opening to see the intersection of the Selena, the Hispanic culture, and classical music come together on a stage.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to not only broadening the composers that we're using, but YOSA has been very intentional about making sure that, diversity is represented in those band members that are sitting out on the stage. And I think that's a great quality for YOSA to have, that it represents what our community looks like. And that has always been very impressive to me about how YOSA is very intentional in that way.
So with that, we just want to thank you again for joining us and being here for Ovation Standing Week. And if you have any questions about YOSA, please reach out to us or any of the board members. We're happy to share YOSA with you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Bye.
Hello, my name is Escamilla and I am in YOSA Sinfonietta Strings. I have the pleasure to introduce today's guest speaker. Please welcome President and Artistic Director of the Sphinx organization, Afa Dworkin.
Hello everyone, and thank you for inviting me to share this talk with you today. I am coming to you from Detroit, Michigan, the home of the Sphinx organization's headquarters. I am always grateful to spend time, even when virtually, with a collection of people directing their own time, their creativity, and resources to explore the connection between youth, social justice, and the performing arts. When members of the Maasai tribe greet one another, they say, "And how are the children?" The question suggests that the focus of a community is its children. Ultimately, it also means that children are a community's most treasured asset and its true strength. Of course, I am sure I'm preaching to the choir, since probably more so than most, YOSA truly knows the great potential of our children and their wonderful capacity to lead us toward a more thriving future. A little bit about me. I'm a classically trained violinist born in Moscow, Russia, and raised in Azerbaijan, a country formerly part of Soviet Union, located just north of Iran. I was born into a multiracial, multicultural family of non-artists, or at least not a traditional sense. My mother, a Romance languages specialist, and my father, who was a chemical engineer. So after being deeply inspired by classical music I heard on television, I spent some years working to convince my parents to allow me to study the violin. And at the age of 7, my wish was granted. When my country was rapidly dissolving in the early 90s, my parents grew more and more concerned about remaining back home and allowing my sister and myself to build our lives there, particularly since part of our heritage was Persian and Jewish, so non-native to our locale. I came to the States in 1994 with much reluctance and a nebulous thought on what life could look like as a musician who did not study nor speak English and had a very different idea about training, career, and everything else in life. However, I was very fortunate. I was able to continue my studies at the University of Michigan's School of Music in Ann Arbor, and eventually there I found my new community of like-minded thinkers, mentors, friends, and eventually my family. Today, I serve as president and artistic director for the Sphinx organization, the national social justice organization whose mission is to transform lives through the power of diversity in the arts. Having started as a special effort to recognize the classical music talent in Black and Latinx communities nearly 25 years ago, today Sphinx is a movement that is reaching more than 10,000 young people every year, with more than 2 million in live and broadcast audiences, having now awarded more than 2.5 million in scholarships and artist grants. During our time together, I hope to tell you a bit about my life's work and hopefully share some potential ideas which may resonate with your respective work here at YOSA or elsewhere. Sphinx was inspired by the idea that music and the arts in general are a human right and an essential vehicle for expression for all people. As such, we feel that music should play an integral part in the lives of young people everywhere, without regard to culture, race, or zip codes. We also believe that our arts institutions must reflect the cultural diversity of the communities in which they reside, and as such, we think that representation and inclusion matter deeply. Back in 1997, when Sphinx was founded, diversity and representations were values that were seldom discussed in an open way. There was no dialogue on belonging, intentional inclusion, or implicit bias. Black and Latinx musicians at the time represented less than 1.5% in American orchestras. Now, while more and many more complex societal challenges have prevented people of color from playing a direct role in classical music until relatively recently, today we do have an opportunity to shift that reality. Black and Latinx musicians in orchestras today represent approximately 4.5%, with the numbers in youth orchestras and academia only slightly more hopeful. So there has been some progress, but it has been incremental. Often, the conversation turns to shortfalls within the pipeline. So I'd like to challenge that notion by sharing that every single year, Sphinx serves only 30% of its applicant pool for its summer education boot camps, ultimately competitively selecting 90 young artists worthy of entering any music school or a conservatory. So what might this tell us? That there certainly is no such thing as a lack of talent within the communities of color. With that said, is access to quality training and instruments an issue within Black and Latinx communities? Yes. Should we be combating this challenge by working to provide instruments, retain our students of color by pairing them with the best teachers and mentors, and creating an inclusive environment? Absolutely. But can we blame the lack of true representation upon a generally ill-defined pipeline problem? The answer is absolutely not if we care to be part of the solution. We, as teaching artists and administrators, allies, people of color alike, are afforded an immense privilege to help identify, nurture, and shape our future leaders. As community citizens, we also have a responsibility to contribute to a more thriving narrative where each young person's life we touch is enriched by our own expertise and true support. For example, the National Alliance for Audition Support is a collaborative effort seeded by the Mellon Foundation, administered by Sphinx in partnership with the New World Symphony and the League of American Orchestras. Since its inception nearly 3 years ago, this program facilitated 31 audition placements by Black and Latinx musicians, including Seattle Symphony, the National Symphony Orchestra of Mexico, Louisville Orchestra, the U.S. Navy Band, and others. The program also awarded almost 300 grants, totaling more than $300,000, supporting auditions, coachings, instruments, and beyond. What is more is that there are now more than 80 orchestras partnering with us by contributing their own time, their financial resources, and expertise into the effort. While we do have a long way to travel, this is certainly a solid start. But also, in a greater way, this is a lesson in value of partnerships. Sphinx could not do this work alone. The key to this progress has been inviting people with differing priorities, backgrounds, and expertise into the same room, physical or virtual, to tackle some of the most complicated issues in our field. The larger lesson is that by practicing inclusion by way of inviting critical input from diverse voices, we can have a result that is better than the sum of its parts. Since COVID alone, Sphinx has taught more than 300 lessons, quadrupled the reach of its orchestral training program, served nearly 90 students ages 11 through 17, empowered several new commissions by Black and Latinx composers, and provided more than $120,000 in funding to our artists. I share this to say that we move forward toward a more significant standard of excellence by insisting that diversity is central to our work, that it is not a threat to any artistic standards, and it will only serve to further evolve and augment our collective work. And the way we get there is together. Imagine if every youth orchestra took this opportunity to reach into the community and find ways to serve its young people through music, ranging from introduction and study of diverse repertoire to starting a new scholarship fund focused specifically on underrepresented communities. What if we formally dedicated the next season and then 10 seasons after that to repertoire by Black and Latino composers? What if each educational institution took the time to devise a recruitment plan that funds diversity in faculty positions reflecting the richness of its own community, while working with its community partners to better represent our ideal candidates? I am thinking of social service organizations, houses of worship, and beyond, truly reaching into the community. Imagine if youth orchestras across the country teamed up and created a community of alliance, dedicating just 10 or 15% of their annual operating budgets to all issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Would they not be a more powerful coalition working together? An alliance of leaders who are committed to shifting this paradigm and setting the new and the very best standards of artistic excellence. Now imagine how many lives would truly be transformed by being introduced to music by composers such as contemporaries of Mozart, like Joseph Boulon St. George, or Samuel Coleridge Taylor, Gabriela Lina Frank, Jimmy Lopez, or maybe the many masters of the Mexican Baroque. If you are an ally, you have the opportunity to stand up and lead from every single seat, no matter your station in life. Lead through example, through action, through active listening and empathy. If you are an educator, seek out literature by Black and Latinx composers and permanently incorporate it into what you teach, coach, conduct, and study yourself. The Diverse Composers Database is a wonderful place to start, as is the resource page on Sphinx's own website. If you're an administrator, rethink your own hiring and retention practices and center them on intentional inclusion. Set specific goals to have at least half of your candidate pool to be representative of persons of color. If you are leading an institution, yours is truly a noble charge. Commit at least 15% of your annual budget to be dedicated to issues of DE&I for the next decade. If each of us does our own part and commits to leading no matter the challenges, together we will transform lives so that not only ourselves, but importantly, our children and their children can thrive in a more just, equitable, and sustainable world. Thank you for your passion, for your time, and your commitment to our children, our future leaders.
Thank you, Afa, for your inspiring, honest words. We've learned so much. Thank you for your leadership. Remember to come back here again at 6 p.m. today and join us for special performances by violinist Elena Uriosti. In the meantime, head on over to the YOSA website or Facebook page to make a donation to YOSA. Your support is needed and will help YOSA change kids' lives through music. See you again soon.